Hello and welcome to the Extended Greg YouTube channel. I'm Greg, and today we're going to be building a captive portal for Alpine Linux based on the actual access point that we built yesterday. I'll link to that stream somewhere over here. I don't know where it actually shows up, but I'll put a card in here somewhere so you can watch that video as well. But we're going to be building this on NoDogSplash, which we have to compile from source because there's no existing package, as we found out in the last stream. So we're going to do our best to see how it actually goes through. I have some notes up, but we're going to be doing this live, so stay tuned. We're about to get extended. Okay, so here we have the actual shell. I'm doing it on SSH today just because I know yesterday the text and everything else like that was microscopic, so it was impossible to see on mobile devices and even some TVs. So realistically, I'm trying to come up with a more permanent solution so that way it makes it easier to read generally, but this will do for now. So we're going to be doing most of the work on this machine anyway, just because this is also going to be our test machine. So first thing we got to do is we got to compile NoDogSplash. When we tried to install it from APK package manager previously, we didn't have the ability to be able to download it because apparently nobody has ported it over to Alpine Linux as a package. But no problem, we can make it work. So when we go over to NoDog's documentation, we do have a compilation guide. And what that gives us is just kind of a basic rundown of how to build it, and it's pretty straightforward. So we just clone the repository, we cd into the directory that it actually creates, and then we just make it, and then we do make install. So before we do that, we do know that there's going to be a few things that we're going to need. So first thing is git and also build base. And pretty much what that's going to do is it's going to install a litany of packages that we're going to need in order to pretty much make any kind of, compiled program or executable. And then something else I like to put in is also Linux headers. All right, so that just installed. The build base is actually quite a few packages, but it includes GCC, which is what we'll need to actually compile. So now that we have that ready to go, let's actually copy the actual code that it provides for us right here in terms of the clone. So the clone statement itself is pretty much going to take down all of the changes that have ever been made to it and apply them in order until you get to whatever the current state of the repository is. So as you see, it goes through. It's pretty quick. It's not a particularly big program, but on larger projects, it can take quite a long time. So, and next it wanted us to cd into NoDogSplash. And when we go in there, we see there's makefile, a README, and then some other things like that, source files, etc. But what it says that we should do now is just do make. So let's go ahead and try that. So it's compiling it based on, there it is. So it's compiling it based on the source files and their references to external dependencies. And one of the things that it needs is micro HTTPD. And the reason it needs that is because it's pretty much building in its own little web server. So we need to actually install micro HTTPD. And specifically the dev variant, because we need to be able to compile it in as source. So let's do apk search micro HTTPD dev. Right, and we see it does have it. So let's add it. What did I just type wrong? I didn't do lib. Excellent. So it just installed it. Let's try compiling it again. And we see it got a lot farther in the fact that it finished. So right there, we have a compiled NoDogSplash, as we see here in green, but it doesn't really do us much good in terms of... And actually, let me try this since I put all the work into it. It shows up right there in green, but we need it to actually be in a place where we can execute it without it just being in an install directory, because at some point we're actually going to have to make sure that it gets added to LBU, otherwise it's not going to persist past reboots. So what we can do is make install. And we see that it copied it to a number of locations. So we have a couple of... I'll do it over here again. Right, but we see it did the two strip activities here, where it just pretty much stripped it down to the bare essentials. It made the directory right there, copied in the actual executables into the bin file, and then it made the etc directory and copied in the related files into there as well. So those are pretty much the locations that we'll have to add to LBU. And now is the best time to do it because we know where everything is at. So let's do LBU add /user bin, and it's nds ctl NoDogSplash. The etc directory should automatically be included, but we can verify that in a second. So let's just do lbu commit-d. Helps if I type it correctly. And then we can do lbu list. And this will show us that indeed we do see that NoDogSplash is included in the actual directory tree that is part of what is saved. So, one step at a time. And Jay Marshall, I appreciate your feedback yesterday, and I also appreciate your comment just now. So, yeah, we're gonna try to make sure it's readable for mobile, and that way everybody can enjoy it without having to take a magnifying glass to the screen. So let's go on from here. So we have pretty much that's it as far as the make. It does show it for OpenWRT, which is really what this, I think, the primary target of this particular repository is. But we obviously want to configure it. So now it's built for Alpine Linux. We have it installed. We have it added to LBU, so it'll persist past startup restarts. But we want to make sure that we're actually able to configure it and make it work. So looking in here, we do have the NoDogSplash.conf, which is obviously the main configuration file for it. So let's just take a look at that first. So if we do vi/edc NoDogSplash and then NoDogSplash.com, we're met with our fun and exciting configuration file. So we're just going to read through this really quick. I do have some guides, but they're just kind of generic and do the replacement values kind of like what I had yesterday. So I don't think that was very helpful. So let's just go through it line by line and configure it. So gateway interface. So set the interface that goes to our router. We don't have BRLAN, but we do have ETH0. So we're going to set that because realistically we want that to be our uplink to the router, which is what it's asking for. Right, next we have our web root, which looks like it's commented out. We are going to use the default in this particular case. We then have firewall rule set, and it's pretty much the access control for authentication. And it says authenticated users. So you may want to open access to a machine on the local subnet that may otherwise be blocked. So, for example, if you wanted to forward requests to another machine to actually do the authentication, you can whitelist a particular machine to be able to do that. But that's not what we're doing. We're just going to have the actual router itself serve the pages that it needs for everything. And then we're going to do firewall rule allow all. That's totally fine. We're not doing that type of access restriction here. Pre-authenticated users is if you have people that, or machines that you want specifically to hop over any kind of authentication that you set up because they're known users. So maybe it's people who use it every day opposed to customers who may just be coming in for a few minutes. So there are options to set specific things for them as well. So users to router, control access to the router itself. If this was an open WRT session or machine, I would say that would be more critical, but in this particular application, there's no web interface or anything else like that they're going to access to reconfigure this. So it shouldn't be an issue. Right, SSH, web, things like that, totally fine. And let's see here. Gateway name, this value will be available as variable gateway name in the splash page source and is status output for NDS control, but otherwise doesn't matter. So pretty much they're saying that it will automatically replace it in the pages that it serves. So if you want to give it a particular name, you could. I think, yeah, the default is NoDogSplash, so we could change this to something else. We could call it My Access Point if we wanted to. Not critical, though, it says. Then gateway address. Alright, and this is the address that the NoDogSplash server listens on. So this is our gateway, which is pretty much the access point IP address that we set statically yesterday, which in our case is 36.1. And we could get that also from network interfaces file as well. So there is status page option. We're going to leave that as a default. Splash page we're also going to leave as a default, but it does have the customizability to be able to allow you to change it to whatever file you want, and we'll actually go through and perhaps do some changes inside of the HTML files as well. And redirect URL is pretty much after they authenticate, where do you want them to go? So it can just leave them there, or it could send them back to the page that they started on, things like that. So right now it says that the port that it's listening on is port 2050, which is not the usual port 80 or 443 that web usually uses. So we are just going to leave the default, but if it's an issue, we can always change it since we're not running any other kind of web interface. Max clients looks like it's set to 250. That's more than we have IP addresses almost, so I doubt that many are going to be connecting to it though. Session timeout, pre-auth idle timeout, etc. We're just going to leave all of this as default and skip over it because we start getting really far into the weeds in terms of tunability for what it's actually capable of doing. And binauth is, I believe, a third-party plugin that you can use to be able to authenticate with a something else. I don't have a description for it. But that's it. So that's the end of the file. So let's actually save that out. And now we have a bit of an issue where, because this is not installed as part of a package, there's no init file that we can actually call in order to run it on startup. So we have nothing to restart here because it doesn't exist. So we can just try it manually just by going to, well, just by running the NoDogSplash, but the problem is I'm connected through Wi-Fi right now on this machine in order to SSH into this machine as well. So if we actually connect to it, we'll disconnect and close the session, which will stop it from running, and we won't be able to actually access it to look at it. So we need to actually write that before we deploy it, but let's just try it here. So we're going to do NoDogSplash, and let's just see what happens when we run it with no arguments. All right, it does look like it's running as 36.1. I'm not sure if we can actually get it to go through to open here, but we're going to try it anyway. That worked great. Whoops, :2050. And we don't have that enabled, but I think that's also because we don't have that other flag enabled, which was the echo 1 to /proc sys net IPv4. I'm doing this from memory. IP_forward. So now that that's there, let's actually try it again. But it may not be listening on that interface anyway. So it doesn't have a way to hairpin back into the Wi-Fi interface. So we can't particularly look at it, but it is something where we'll see it momentarily when we do actually activate it as a service. So let's do that really quick. So I tried to see if Bard would do up a quick little example for us, specifically on the init side, but it did point us to the wiki. So it still doesn't do any programming, but you know, I did notice some success with Node.js, but we're not doing that here. So we're gonna go to this to be able to at least see what our options are. And I think this is the appropriate example to be able to choose from. So the basic example does not define the start or stop function, but it does do the start pre, which then creates some of the requisite paths, as well as setting permissions, things of that nature, in order to make sure that it's able to run and be able to set the PID file, everything else like that based on it. So let's actually just copy this in. We're going to create a new file. And we're going to call it NoDogSplash. Insert, paste it in. And what it has here, just the RC service name, this is actually whatever the name of the file is. So that's just how it automatically fills it. So, and obviously we want to do, instead of my daemon, we want to do NoDogSplash. In order to start that, we're not going to supply any arguments. We're just going to leave it blank, but we are going to leave it there. For our user, we only have one user on this system, so we're going to call it root. PID file is good as its defaults. And the args for the start-stop daemon, in this particular case, we don't have anything custom from there. And I see the question in chat. I'll answer or I'll take a look at that in a second. So pretty much, that's going to constitute our init file. So let's go ahead and try and start it. First, I'm going to do kill all NoDogSplash, because we didn't actually... We started it, it forked to the background. There it goes. So, excellent. So now when we started, it shouldn't be starting a second instance. It should just be starting the first instance. So let's do chmod +x /etc/initd /NoDogSplash. And we're going to do lbu add /etc/initd /NoDogSplash. Let's do lbu commit -d. And let's just try starting it before we add it as a startup service. And it did start successfully, so let's just go ahead and register it as a startup service. So we're going to do rc update add /et just NoDogSplash default. If I spell it right. Excellent. All right. And we will commit that as well. So let me see what Jay Marshall said here. Said, question for later, do you think it's possible to do an AP captive portal within a Docker container? Allows one to easily turn AP CP on and off by controlling the container. And that's actually a great question. I think the access point part of it, you could theoretically port in the individual, well, I should say, if you had hardware or the OS supported just passing the entirety of that device into the Docker container, you probably could have it do full management on it. But I know Docker has some weirdness with Ethernet controllers and Wi-Fi controllers in particular, where it does require OS interaction in order to be able to share it. But for the captive portal portion of it, definitely. Because even with this, it doesn't actually care where it's coming in, as long as it's proxying the traffic that's going through. There's nothing to say that you couldn't even use a larger access point distribution mechanism to aggregate and send it through your captive portal to be able to give that conditional access. So yeah, that's definitely an option, and that I'm hoping to get into Docker pretty soon. I've been trying to come up with some ideas for different types of projects to be able to do with those, just like we're doing on Alpine. So I think that could be a lot of fun. So really good question. Thank you. So from here, we've actually started our init process. We've gotten everything up and running. Theoretically, it is serving something. And just so you know what it's serving, it should be vi /varlib. I might have to look it up. Let's actually take a look. And this goes into etc NoDogSplash htdocs/. And htdocs. So it has images, splash.css, splash.html, and status. If we just look at the HTML one really quick, we do see it's pretty filled out and generic. Gives us some authentication, things of that nature, but we really don't have that much in terms of any kind of authentication set, so it should just give us an OK button by default. That does the copyright, so we could modify that a little bit later. But let's actually reconnect to it, which is going to disconnect to this current session, but that's just fine. See if we can get it to show up. There it goes. So my access point. And we entered the password for it yesterday, so it should have saved that. I haven't restarted the computer since then. And let's go over here and just go to google.com. And it may or may not actually go through and give us the captive portal by default. There's some issues with Captive Portal depending on how you actually get to it, where HTTPS traffic can actually disrupt it. But let's see what we got. It may have crashed out, or it may have disconnected because there was no internet access available. That is something that Windows does as well. So we may need to go to it directly, but let's see. Let's actually just try that. And on phones, it will actually see this is the actual default for NoDogSplash. So we named it My Access Point Hotspot Gateway. It says welcome, and it says for access to the internet, please press continue. Because you saw we didn't have access to the internet. So if we hit continue, we don't have a redirect defined, but we should be able to go to Google now. Now let's see what we get. And I think let's see if we could log in. We have to change the IP address for this. It doesn't want to start a new client. So we'll do new session. And let's see what we actually get to. I'm just going to save this out, make it easier for the future. We can access it, so we do have network connectivity. All right, and let's just take a look and see exactly what we have. And we should be able to at least get all of our current policies just to see what we have. So let's do list. Okay. So input is unrestricted, forward is unrestricted, output is unrestricted. NDS auth looks like established states only, reject with ICMP port unreachable. NDSnet. And this is a lot of stuff that it's actually doing based on some virtual things that it's creating. So virtual network and the router. And that's pretty much it. So it looks like it's got quite a bit going on, but it looks like it is working. So let's see what we can get really quick with this. Let's see if it has a log file. So it doesn't have a log file there, but let's see if it shows up in messages. And by the way, this is our connection right here. Right up here in particular, which... So right here, we see the laptop that I'm currently on and the DHCP information associated with it. Then we see starting accounting, etc., all for the same MAC address. So that is something that we see it is connecting successfully through the access point part of it, but we don't necessarily see that it's actually able to get through to the network. So let's just try pinging some things. So first, let's ping the Wi-Fi gateway. And we get a reply. Next hop, let's just try and ping the gateway of the Ethernet interface. And we also get a reply. So let's try NSLookup. Google. And we do get a reply. So the machine itself has it. Let's try the same exact thing on the client. So there's no issues with the machine's connectivity itself. It doesn't want to click things. Let's see. It's going to open 9 of them now, I have a feeling. Yes. That's what happens when you get impatient. Let's see. So we're going to do ping. Currently, we are still connected to 192.168.36.1. We get a reply, which we expected because we're able to connect to the web interface that's currently there. Let's try the same thing. Let's connect to the gateway of the Ethernet port on that same machine. And we see we can't get through. So there's something blocking it in terms of actually getting out to the wider world. And let's check our config file to make sure that NoDogSplash actually has that appropriately, because we did change that to Ethernet 0, but let's just see what's going on with that. Yeah, etc NoDogSplash. And it says and actually this is what we had set later. Let's just try setting this to WLAN 0. But it says set to the interface of the router that is to be managed by NoDogSplash. And when we go down a bit further, trying to find it really quick, where it said gateway, like gateway name and gateway address, it wanted this to be the one of WLAN 0. So I think we may have misconfigured that earlier. So let's just try that. Now let's see if our actual init script actually restarts this. And my feeling is that we may need to add in a stop function inside of that script in order to get it to exit appropriately. As it said, no matching process found. But let's just try it again. Let's go over here. We did hit the OK button, but let's just see if we can get it to come back up. Right, and let's just make sure that we didn't have a change after we did that. So 36.1, destination unreachable. Let's see why. We are connected to it still. And 35.1 is also unreachable. So right now, nothing is working, so let's hit the continue button. And now when we run the same thing with 36, still says unreachable. But 35 is working. Okay, so it does appear to be more adequately managing the firewall rules. Let's go back over here and let's do IP tables list. Looks pretty similar. But we did have this with the reject with ICMP port unreachable, which would affect our ping. So it may be hiding, so it's not responding to pings. And it looks like it's doing that in a few places. So, but that's totally fine. Let's see if we can get out to the internet now. And we can. So right now we're able to access it. I want to just make sure that we're on the right network. We are on my access point. I don't want to do speed tests, but we can at least do test search. So we do see that it is loading successfully. Let's try YouTube. We do see the captive portal here. Still muted. But we see that what I was actually searching for a second ago. So it is able to pass all the traffic that we want it to. It is able to connect. We can even connect through our original session, or should be. Which is currently inactive, but we should be able to reach it. And we can. So at this point, it's doing what we expect. But let's say we wanted to add some additional functionality to it. And I mean, I will say, even right now, it is something where it will definitely be able to serve a very good purpose for like establishments that want to give free Wi-Fi, where you don't necessarily want to have them have users have to worry about authentication in particular. But you do want to make sure that people aren't just connecting other things to it that are going to just pretty much be parasitic drains on your bandwidth. So with this, you can set a timeout to be able to make sure that they have to click a button manually to be able to log in after a certain point, or even open it up and modify it so it has to complete a CAPTCHA, for example, to make sure that it's not being done automatically by a process that is not a person. So let's just try and see what we could do in terms of locking it down a little bit more. Let's say we wanted to have them enter a number that's from a receipt, or a password that you give a guest coming into your home, you know, something like that. So you don't necessarily want the authentication on the actual access point, but you do want to make sure that they're actually able to allow the ones who are allowed to actually get in. So let's find out how to do that. Currently we are still connected to it, so at some point it might actually kick us off, and we'll have to play that by ear. So right now we have our auth target. So it's showing us what's currently on there. So token, redirect, click here to enter. Oh, actually, let's look at that. So it did send us to redirect, but obviously we had nowhere to go. But let's do status.html. So we're already logged in and we have access to the internet. I don't know why gateway name was not filled out. It looks like it was on the other page, so clearly everything's working great. So, but that's fine. So let's actually scroll through it. Let's see if we can do a quick search. So we have site-wide username and password. We really want local authentication in this particular case, but it does have mechanisms to be able to integrate with more database-driven password management. And that's forwarding authentication service. And that's great if you want to do multiple instances of this for different areas of a building, especially if you have a large user load, things like that. You can potentially centralize it and have it synchronize. But let's see what we could do here. So it talks about not a secure mechanism because passwords are sent in clear text. So password authentication, user authentication, password, username, and user password attempts as desired. And then pretty much we would have to replace the current button with this form. Let's try it. So let's see. And actually I'm gonna just do it from our connection here. So let's do vi /etc NoDogSplash, NoDogSplash.conf. Let's see if we have it predefined, otherwise we can just add it to the bottom. We have the redirect URL. Right now it is none. But we could actually set that to status. This is not related to what I was just doing. This is me getting distracted, but I am going to just do it anyway. Make it look nicer. Session timeout, pre-auth idle timeout. And so pretty much what this is talking about is that hash key, the token ID that it gives you. That's how long it will be valid for if it's not used. And this is how long after they click that OK button, how long they're actually valid for before they would have to re-authenticate. See, Will the Thrill just commented, said, once again, love the late night live shows. I've caught your last couple a bit delayed, so didn't get them live, but did watch. And I definitely appreciate everybody watching, and I appreciate the comments and everything else like that. So makes it definitely a lot more enjoyable. So, and do you take recommendations for future projects? Absolutely. Yes. And I mean, I work on my own personal projects and I like to just share them just because, people might want to try them themselves and I'm already doing them. So, otherwise I'm the only one who gets to enjoy them. Well, enjoy is relative depending on if you like the process, but yeah, it's definitely something where I'm always open to suggestions, things like that. In fact, this particular access point, the live stream yesterday, and by extension, the captive portal video today was actually based on a comment that somebody did on the networking video from Alpine Linux, which was a stream from, I think, September. So it's definitely something I'm always open to user suggestions, and I appreciate you guys for joining. So either feel free to comment and chat during the stream or in the comments on the videos after the stream. I read them all. I don't get that many comments, so I can read them all at this point. So, but I appreciate that. So let's see, the check interval is how often it will check if all the clients are up to date. MAC address, so pretty much when it's actually going through and blocking it, it will make sure that it will deauthenticate that MAC address, so it's not allowed to communicate and will stop responding to it. Let's see. And pretty much in this particular case, it's setting a blacklist for MAC addresses that abuse the system, whitelist for those who are trusted, and pretty much from there, yeah, it looks like it's just a common delimited list, but you can just set those. Traffic control. I'm not sure what the behavior is of this in particular, but we're not going to mess with it today. Download limit is the amount of actual bandwidth, or at least I think the number of bytes that they're allowed, or it's actually kilobits that they're allowed to use. So maximum download speed. So this can be useful, especially for a shared connection, just so that way not one person isn't downloading a file and hogging all of the available bandwidth. Same for upload speed. Gateway IP range. And this would probably let you, well, you could set up, especially if you're setting up trusted devices, be able to bypass this for better latency. Debug level. Yeah, we don't have it on full debug yet. But, and well, the Thrill said, I'm delving into HackRF 1 SDR stuff currently. Oh, and actually, I love SDR stuff. I actually got my amateur radio license just to be compliant about it and everything. But I was actually, I built a little Raspberry Pi and a box so I could stream over the network pretty much the NOAA weather satellites that pass overhead, the low frequency 137.5 megahertz, pretty much a few years ago, and used a discone antenna to actually try and record them. The images always came out fuzzy. I never got like a full raster image from horizon to horizon. There was always like weird breakup somewhere in the center for reasons I don't know, but I absolutely love that stuff, and we'll probably get back into it if you have ideas for it. But I'll probably share my design at least, because what I did is I put it inside of an enclosure that I could just mount outside, and the only connection to it was a waterproof PoE connection. But it did everything in terms of having a low noise amplifier inside of it for the antenna, having, obviously the antenna connection mounted in there through waterproof means, and then I could literally just drop it and go inside and listen to it using the SDR software over with the network connection, and it worked. So, that, and also automating part of it. But yeah, it is just a technician license. So it's not, I didn't go further than that because I'm not doing any kind of low frequency stuff. I just don't literally my property is not big at all, so I don't have actual space to even run the antennas unless I do a slinky solution. So it's just something the technician license was good enough for what I was doing. But I generally don't transmit either. I just like to receive and kind of see what I see in terms of satellite activity, especially. So I love that stuff. So let's see. So binauth looks like, so this is one of the options for authentication. Talks about the auth client, things like that. And I'm not sure that there's an easy way to do that, and I think we're getting close to the bottom of the script. So we may just need to actually add our entries here. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So over here, talks about password authentication, username authentication, but we don't know what those actual parameters are supposed to be. Let's ask Bard if he's got suggestions here. Will the Thrill said, I'm looking at getting the new Electric Goes antenna bundle. Yes, to try and get some of those images as well. Yeah, so the higher frequency stuff, the 1.5 gigahertz stuff, which is right at the range of like the SDR stuff that I have, because I got the new little dongles, and that's what I've been using for that. It worked really well, but the upper range of it was just right at the cusp of where pretty much those frequencies started. So yeah, but that would be really cool. Just try out some of the stuff, especially with the new decoding of the GOES antennas for geostationary. I know building antennas, things like that, I tried a little bit of that and had limited success, but it's definitely something to dive into. It's really cool. One day we could do a stream with both of us on it, try something like that. Actually, that could be really cool as well. Yeah, the email and everything else like that is on the YouTube page. You can pretty much go to that to find it. I also have the website, which is theextendedgreg.com, that has the email on there as well. It's not a very extensive website. I don't have a message board or anything yet, but I do have that site. But feel free to reach out to me and, keep the ideas coming. I definitely appreciate that. All right, and it says it can't access the website we provided. I'm not sure why, because we access it just fine without anything. So let's just ask it directly. All right. Will it do it? Let's see. AI, we're counting on you. Let's make this a new chat because clearly it's glitching. So authentication method. Let's see if we can actually find that. Oops. No. So we just need to set that. So let's just do authentication method local. Username, my username. We don't have to be original here. Password, my password. Also fine, so it's just going to give one username and password for everything, for all users, etc. So it will track them separately in terms of their MAC addresses, but we see. And we do already have this set in terms of authenticated users, allow all. Then it gives us optional stuff in terms of 3600 seconds, gateway port, etc. And then it talks about radius servers, things of that nature. But let's try it. Let's see how it works with just these 3 base variables being set. And also we needed to update our init file. So let's do vi/etc/init.d NoDogSplash. And we need to add a stop function really quick. And we're just going to do kill all NoDogSplash or true, just so that way it exits clean. Save that out. We'll save both of those changes, but now we need to edit our login file. That way we, or at least our splash HTML file, just to make sure that it's actually going through. So etc NoDogSplash htdocs. I don't remember what's after that. Splash.html. And now we need to copy in from the manual. Oh, that's actually really nice that it gives us those variable definitions there. And it actually has it commented out. Let's just try deleting this and seeing how it goes. So it should provide username and password. All right, so let's try restarting it. We'll save it out, /etc/initd. Caught sig term. Oh. Let's do this. So it's also named NoDogSplash. So when I do kill all NoDogSplash, it's killing the subprocess and the script that's trying to kill it. And so it's catching the sig term. So that's what that error meant. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to cat the PID file in order to get the PID and use the kill command in order to send the sig term signal directly to it. So that's the intent. Whether it works or not is another story, but at least it'll give us a different error. Right, so PID file, cat, either that or true. Let's just try it first. Excellent, it says no starts to process. Let's try it once more because we did kill it all before that. So it does look like it's actually killing it successfully. Either that or when it actually launches it, it's not doing it. So let's do ps-aux. Or grep NoDogSplash. I don't see it coming up, which is slightly concerning. Well, let's find out if it's working. Okay, so it looks like it's not. So let's find out why. So we'll stop it, and let's just run it manually. And my feeling is that it's crashing out because of the config. So bad option authentication method line 387. So that is the reason. It's all Bard's fault. No, let's see. We won't make the AI angry. So it says unknown authentication local. They may have changed that in the current version that Bard is not familiar with. So the syntax changed from being able to do local to now requiring it to use binauth. So let's actually just do a quick search on that because I think we still have internet access. So NoDogSplash. So binauth is always local, does not require FAS. Let's see. So this is what we're looking for, which is the site-wide username and password. And we already have our actual splash page modified to be able to support it. But let's go through and see what we could do with this. And it gives the example for OpenWRT, which has much simpler commands. And this does look like it's the script that it's actually trying to call. Let's try it. So it looks like it just has some form of communication capability to be able to do it. So let's just do it. We're going to use exactly this. So myauth.sh. Wait, we didn't take out the stuff that was bad. All right, and we will paste that all in. And we're pretty much going to leave it as is, but we are going to at least change this to my user and my password, just to make sure it's as secure as possible. So. And it gives a second option, which is guest and thanks. So that's also fine. So it's also saying the response here. Yeah, so my user and password would give us unlimited access, whereas guest would give us 600 seconds of access. And let's actually set that to be even less than that. So let's just set it to, let's say, 120 seconds, just so it's 2 minutes, just so we can test it. And anything else would get exit 1. So it wouldn't succeed, and that would cause it to stay denied. Perfect. So let's save that out. Let's give chmod access for execution on that myauth file. Let's add it to LBU. All right, and let's just try running it without init just to make sure it's not erroring out. Perfect. So binauth is enabled, binauth script, and it shows it, and it is working. So let's go ahead and perfect. So now we can start it with init. Perfect. And now if we actually restart it, and do ps-a or grip, NoDogSplash, we do see it is apparently running 2 instances. So that is interesting. We may be able to do that. Okay, that does work. Let's quickly update our init file just to correct that. So this didn't work because it spawned a child process. Actually, there may be... Let's see if we can keep it in the foreground. Maybe we're reinventing the wheel here. -F. So let's do -F, and that should actually alleviate our issue, and we can just pretty much delete our stop function. So here under command args, we will do -F. And let's just try restarting it really quick. And let's try restart, and we shouldn't get any red errors. Perfect. So now that it is running, I'm not entirely sure how to deauthenticate this. But what we can do is at least restart the server. Oh, and remember yesterday how we had that issue with actually putting in our echo into that particular process. So when we did... So specifically, when we did our echo 1, and it wasn't preserving past restarts, what I'm going to do is actually add this to the init script that is starting NoDogSplash. And I think that that will be a great way to be able to compensate for that not being able to run. And let's see what we can get with that. So we'll add that to our start pre. And let's paste it in. Because now I'm going to restart the actual Pi running the access point. All right, and that's going to close our connection. We're going to disconnect from the network, because it has to in order to go down. I can't switch to it right now, otherwise it will actually... There we go. So it's going to switch to a different one. Right, so we'll have to see when it comes back up. But it is something where, realistically, I can't look at it because it's in 720p mode in order to make it visible, but then it's going to crash my capture card again. So what I actually have to solve that is a scaler that will take everything in, but it will also output a default image when the video drops out. Well, specifically at least a default color. But it should keep continuous video going to the capture card and keep it from crashing. So that's my actual solution for it. And then I can set the inputs, potentially to 480p, something like that, for the output of the Pi to make the text much larger. And then do that through the user config file, but still have it be captured at 1080. So when I switch back and forth between sources, there's that consistency that the capture card is expecting. And then also, by extension, OBS will be able to handle it and keep displaying it a lot better. So it should be back up. Let's see if we have it here. We do. So let's connect in. I don't know if it's going to maintain our authentication, but it looks like it did open up a thing, which that's what it's supposed to do. So when you connect to it and it recognizes that it does have a captive portal enabled on it, it's supposed to automatically open a browser and redirect you there in most modern OSs and browsers. So our name is going to be our username. So it's going to be my user. Password is going to be, oh, well, this is terrible. So we would have to change that to a password field, but I think we get the point. Let's see. Actually, so this would log us in permanently. Let's try logging in as guest, because that's going to keep us logged in for 2 minutes so we can see it time out. So it was guest and thanks. And did it accept it? It does not look like it accepted it. Capital G in guest. There we go. So now we can access the internet. So time is 2:17 by 2:19. It should time out. So let's just search something. Right, so I have many questions about the suggestions. And the reason why I was pushing towards NoDogSplash is I do think it's a very lightweight and comprehensive solution. So it does offer quite a bit of capability, but it doesn't need a lot of overhead. And I do believe it's running PHP on the back end. So realistically, it does make things go a little bit better, because we are seeing variable replacement. It might be a stripped down version of PHP, but it's using a similar syntax. So whether it's actually PHP or not, or just doing a rudimentary type of template solution, I think is something worth exploring, but we're not going to do that today. So, right, so it's 2:19 right now. Let's see if we lose access to the internet. Perhaps a few more seconds here. We're going to let it go till 20, but we should see it actually time out. So we are on status right now, so our redirect did work for that. Hopefully it wasn't minutes. I'm not waiting here for 2 hours. I actually did not look at that. 1 minute. 600 seconds, right? Which was 10 minutes. So we changed that to 120. But we could set the upload and download limits as well, etc. I'm not sure that it's timing us out correctly, but it is otherwise working. So it is blocking us from being able to get into it. Oh, I don't think we have internet access anymore. Oh, we don't. Excellent. So it did, in fact, lock us out. And it brought us back. So when we went to a baseline URL, that's when it brought us back to our intended web page. So now we can log in. So we logged in as guests last time, and we did see that it did in fact kick us out when we were supposed to. And the nice thing is, technically speaking, you can have that potentially, that script link back to files or other things that you can have changed based on a generated thing. And for example, so just like a use case example, let's say you had a screen in, let's say it's a restaurant or a store, you know, you could have it displayed there with the credentials for this. You could have an unrestricted Wi-Fi connection that anybody can just connect to, and then you could have them put in the code of the day. And you wouldn't even necessarily have to have them prompt for the username. You can actually hard code that. It would just be a matter of going through and saying, enter this key, and you can access it for 20 minutes, you know, or something of that nature. So that way, you know, anybody who walks in, a customer can easily get on the internet without having to bother people for tech support on how to do that, but you would still not be giving it away to everybody around you for free, because I will say this, keeping frustration high on people using things the way they're not supposed to is a great way to prevent them from kind of wanting to use it that way. So you can still leave it open, but it's open enough so the people who are using it properly don't have a problem with it. But for people who are trying to abuse it, it becomes a major hassle. So, but I think this is working as expected, and it's working well enough to where I'm happy to call it a day. So, thanks for watching the video today. If you liked the video, be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment down below. And if you know anybody who would like these kinds of videos, be sure to share it with them. I would appreciate it, and I hope they would appreciate it too. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And then hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we're getting extended. So until then, take care.